Asia has always been a region of breathtaking beauty, drawing millions of travelers each year. But what happens when tourism suddenly disappears? In 2025, several nations are struggling to keep their economies alive. In this video, we will explore 7 Asian countries that are on the verge of collapse due to the tourism crisis of 2025, and reveal the real reasons behind it. Let's begin. Number 7. Maldives. Often described as a paradise on Earth, the Maldives is now showing serious signs of instability as a result of the tourism crisis. This island nation depends almost entirely on visitors, and when the steady flow of tourists slowed, its entire system began to crumble. Why would fewer tourists create the possibility of collapse? The answer lies in the fact that nearly 70% of the country's income comes directly from tourism. With empty beaches and deserted resorts, the government is left with little money to run services, repay debts, or sustain jobs. Hotels are shutting down, flights are being reduced, and locals who once depended on resort work are losing their primary source of income. The government had borrowed billions to build luxury resorts and airports, but now repayment is impossible, raising fears of bankruptcy. Rising sea levels only worsen the situation, as repairing damaged islands and facilities requires funds that no longer exist. Small businesses such as diving schools, souvenir shops, and food stalls are closing one after another, leaving once busy islands eerily quiet. Families are migrating abroad in search of survival, leaving behind half-empty villages. In 2025, the Maldives faces a painful truth. Without tourism, the nation has no solid foundation, and its collapse may come faster than anyone expects. Before we move on, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Now, let's look at the next country. Number 6. Cambodia. Home to the world-famous Angkor Wat, Cambodia was once a thriving destination for millions of travelers. But in 2025, the steep drop in tourism is pushing the country toward disaster. Why does a decline in visitors pose such a threat? Cambodia relies heavily on ticket sales, hotel stays, and guided tours to keep its economy afloat. With that revenue gone, the nation is struggling. Angkor Wat alone used to generate over half of Cambodia's tourism income, but with fewer flights and rising travel costs, arrivals have fallen drastically. Hotels in Siem Reap are shutting down, tuk-tuk drivers are leaving the streets, and restaurants once packed with backpackers now sit empty. Without a steady stream of tourists, thousands of families are losing their only livelihood. The problem runs deeper. Tourism taxes once funded schools, hospitals, and infrastructure projects. Now, with revenues gone, budgets are being slashed, and debt from building airports and new resorts is piling up with no way to repay it. What was once Cambodia's golden ticket has now become a heavy burden. If the decline continues, the country could face a collapse greater than anyone anticipated. Number 5. Nepal. Nepal, famous for the majestic Himalayas and Mount Everest, is now close to breaking down as fewer travelers arrive in 2025. Why does a fall in climbers and trekkers threaten the country? Tourism provides jobs for thousands of guides, porters, and hotel workers. When visitors stop coming, families lose their only reliable source of income. For years, climbing Everest and trekking the Annapurna Trail brought in billions, but with fewer flights, higher travel costs, and safety concerns, the influx of travelers has slowed dramatically. Villages that once welcomed climbers are struggling to survive. Shops and lodges are closing, while the government, once dependent on climbing permit fees, now faces a shortage of funds for roads, schools, and hospitals. Debt from building new airports and hotels is mounting, putting even more strain on the system. Even young people who once hoped to work in tourism are leaving Nepal to find jobs abroad. The country's future is now uncertain, standing on shaky ground that could lead to collapse. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's move on to the next country. Number 4. Sri Lanka. Known for its beaches, temples, and tea plantations, Sri Lanka is another nation at risk of collapse due to the tourism crisis. Although the island has faced many challenges in the past, the sharp drop in visitors in 2025 is shaking its fragile economy once again. Why is tourism so critical to Sri Lanka? The industry has long been a key source of revenue, and when that money disappears, the government struggles to repay debts, run services, and provide jobs. For years, tourism helped the country rebuild after civil war and natural disasters. Hotels thrived, small businesses prospered, and drivers had steady work. But now, with empty resorts and fewer flights, families dependent on foreign travelers are losing their savings, with many slipping back into poverty. The government faces mounting pressure as well. Much of its revenue once came from tourist taxes and spending, but now there's little money for fuel, food imports, or essential goods. This has triggered rising prices, citizen unrest, and widespread protests. Even small villages that survived on handicrafts or guided tours are turning into ghost towns. By 2025, Sri Lanka is proving how quickly a nation can collapse when its lifeline is cut. Tourism was once its greatest hope, but now its downfall is leaving the country unstable and vulnerable to a deeper crisis that could last for decades. Number 3. Thailand. Thailand has always been among the most popular destinations in Asia, famous for its beaches, street food, and vibrant cities. But in 2025, the drastic decline in visitors is creating serious risks for its economy. Why does the drop in tourists hurt Thailand so much? Tourism makes up a large part of its GDP, and when that revenue disappears, everything from hotels to food stalls suffers. Bangkok, Phuket, and Chiang Mai once thrived on constant arrivals, but now hotels are closing, airlines are cutting flights, and bustling night markets are half empty. This has left thousands unemployed, tour guides, shop owners, and small vendors are struggling to survive. The government also feels the pressure, as lost tourism revenue has slowed development projects, reduced public services, and increased debt. Inflation worsens the situation, with locals facing higher prices while their incomes shrink. Even cultural sites and festivals are suffering, since fewer visitors mean less funding to preserve traditions. In 2025, Thailand's glowing reputation as a top travel destination is fading, and without tourism, its economy risks collapsing. If the crisis persists, Thailand may lose not just jobs and income but also the cultural treasures and global recognition that once made it shine. Number 2. Indonesia. Indonesia, the largest archipelago in Asia, has long depended on Bali as the crown jewel of its tourism industry. For years, Bali alone welcomed millions of travelers, generating billions of dollars that supported hotels, restaurants, and local businesses. But in 2025, the tourism collapse is threatening Indonesia's stability. Why is this crisis so severe? Entire regions, including Bali, Lombok, and Yogyakarta, depend almost entirely on tourism. Without visitors, their local economies collapse. Resorts are closing, beaches are quiet, and airports are seeing reduced traffic. Small businesses such as surf schools, scooter rentals, and street markets are empty. Families that once survived on daily tourist spending have fallen into poverty. Even farmers and fishermen are affected, as hotels and restaurants no longer buy their goods. The government faces its own crisis. Billions invested in airports, highways, and resorts are now yielding little return. Debt is rising, inflation has pushed food and fuel costs higher, and citizens are struggling. Social unrest is also growing. Villages once sustained by tourism are desperate, and protests over unemployment are spreading. Investors are abandoning projects, leaving behind empty hotels as symbols of failure. Without new industries or revived tourism, Indonesia risks its toughest economic challenge in modern history. If this crisis continues, many young Indonesians will leave tourist towns for overcrowded cities, worsening unemployment and crime. For Indonesia, tourism has never been just about visitors, it was survival. Now, the nation is walking on thin ice. Number 1. Philippines. The Philippines, famous for its white sand beaches, warm hospitality, and colorful festivals, has long been one of Asia's most beloved travel spots. But in 2025, the tourism crisis is hitting the country harder than most. Tourism once brought in billions annually and supported millions of jobs. But with the industry shrinking, the effects are devastating. Why is the decline so dangerous? Millions of families depend on jobs in hotels, restaurants, resorts, and transport services. Without tourists, those jobs are vanishing. Destinations like Boracay, Palawan, and Cebu, once packed with visitors, now show clear signs of slowdown. Hotels are closing, travel agencies are shutting down, and small businesses such as food stalls and souvenir shops are empty. Families are struggling to survive, and poverty is spreading faster across provinces. The government invested heavily in airports, highways, and promotional campaigns to boost tourism. But these projects now bring little return, while debts continue to rise. Inflation has made essentials like food and fuel more expensive, worsening the crisis for ordinary citizens. Communities that once relied almost entirely on foreign tourists are now facing collapse. The biggest fear is long-term damage. If tourists don't return, international airlines may cut routes, investors may cancel resort projects, and workers may leave the country to find jobs abroad. The Philippines could lose not only income but also its global reputation as a vibrant, safe destination. Without urgent action, the nation may face higher unemployment, growing crime, and deeper poverty. Once one of Asia's brightest tourism stars, the Philippines now stands at the edge of collapse. The survival of millions depends on whether the country can revive tourism or build strong alternatives before it's too late. Thank you for watching. Before you leave, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Which of these countries do you think is most at risk of total collapse? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading and replying to as many as possible.